reader is Liz Abrams-Morly. Her newest collection, Beholder, was published by Word Poetry in April 2018. Inventory was published by Finishing Line Press in 2014, and Necessary Turns was published by Word Poetry in 2010 and won an Eric Hoffer Award for Excellence in Small Press Publishing that year. Her poems and short stories have been published in a variety of nationally distributed anthologies, journals, and e-zines, and have been read on NPR. She is currently working on a poem series based on her incredible experiences in Sicily and Malta. So thank you, Rosemont and Carla. I will take that thank you. Liz is co-founder of Around the Block Writers Collaborative. Any given Tuesday at noontime, you can find her at the corner of 2nd and Chestnut, directing her resistance towards the walls behind which her phantom senator, Pat Toomey, may or may not be hiding from his constituents. So thank you for your service. A poet, professor, grandma, and activist, Liz wades knee-deep in the flow of everyday life from which she draws inspiration and occasionally exasperation. Please welcome Liz Abrams-Morly.
So this first poem is inspired by a painting, a very cheerful painting that would fit with your, with Trish's story by the German surrealist Max Ernst. His paintings are not cheerful, but. And the title derives from Torah, and it refers to the segment that says, "Choose life that you and your seed may live." So this is Deuteronomy 30:19. After the painting, "Everyone Here Speaks Latin" by Max Ernst, 1943. Everyone here speaks Latin, and when birds settle on pin oak and pitch pine, song. In the woods, wild turkeys guard their nests. There will be young. Hush. The woodpecker rat-a-tats at grubs under soft gray bark, and soon red-rimmed leaves will stretch from limbs, unfold into full-blown spring, which lasts a day or two here on the outer cape, or so goes native lore anyway, and summer follows close on brief spring's clawed feet. August last year, gypsy moths, like some fluttering mushroom cloud, enveloped oaks and gnawed bare a year's worth of foliage in 2 weeks of tree holocaust. Winter iced the hydrangea. It's easy to dream most nights of other mushroom clouds, North Korea maybe Russia, your grandbabies looking up in awe and gone. The madman in the capital barely speaks English, and never in complete sentences. Still, the ignorant salute while you in your garden unearth words, Orwell and Atwood, as you plant root vegetables and bulbs that will be next year's bright daffodils and velvety tulips. Choose next year, trim forsythia, fill a vase to place on your table. Fear will flatten you, fast as any nightmare's spectral blast. Raise your shades, choose resistance. So this is a new one, and it's Earth Stars Rising. Darkness. What grows in darkness? Mushrooms. We'll be mushrooms then. We'll feed on rot and proliferate. Here on the trees you fell, we'll flute the flaking crusts of bark. We are the rough. The lace gracing a fierce justice's collar, don't mistake us for decorative. We draw energy from flood, from fog. Which of us will poison you? We hide among the beige, innocuous, shrivel and then overnight return. In Wellfleet Wood, I am become the Earth Star fungus. I seem to disappear, only to renew. Underground, I feed on roots in the dark, in the quiet. Then suddenly, you'll see me everywhere along your path. Petite gray stars, colorless anemones, fingernail-size appliques of dried foliage. You think, poke me. Go ahead, poke me. Watch how I burst, my spores taking to air. You'll help me seed my words among the scrub pine and pinhook. Go ahead, poke me. I'll be everywhere. So, that was newer, but this one flashes back to another, I mean, I think I pulled all the politics together, and I loved your reading, by the way, today. This is in a perspective of a voice of another artist. It was a man I met at a craft fair who was working on T-shirts and sweatshirts that he was selling. And it opens with an epigraph. It's a quote from our gone and, at least by me, much lamented former President Obama. It's kind of a found poem, more of a recorded monologue. So I'm calling it an encountered poem. So the epigraph it opens with is, "We flood communities with so many guns and, that it's easier for a teenager to get his hands on a Glock than on a computer or even a book." Barack Obama, July 12th, 2016. Word. Craft Fair booth number 32, an encountered poem. "Yeah," he says, "I'm the designer. It's all in the design." His deconstructed peace sign spells G-I-V-E across tie-dyed sweatshirts. I see you see it. The puzzle, what the word creates. Pieces of peace, he says. He says, "Listen here, I was just listening to my president. And did you hear him on the radio down there in Dallas? Another funeral. I guess he's had practice. But that consoler-in-chief, the man's got words. I always wanted words. Yeah, I was an architect, but buildings, I mean, what do buildings say? I needed to say something solid, you know, the guns, the news, all those funerals. Now I say it with shirts. Proffered palm turns skyward as if he's asking me to dance, waves across the span of his craft fair booth to a sweatshirt alive in oranges and yellows. You like that one? Lady who came just before me, you wanted to know, couldn't I put the words on the back and so not distract from the colors? Showed me her back when I said no, but you gotta see a face when you see the words coming toward you. We need urgent now, he says, to start a conversation, and he's barely taken a breath. But I guess what he means by conversation is that my eye contact is enough. That my nodding when he says, I only make hoodies anymore, you know why, right, is enough. Hoodies and onesies and toddler tees, he says, it's never too early to bring the word. Yeah, he was a character. I loved that. That was an exact quote that he said he needed to make something solid. He used to be an architect and he made buildings, but now he needs to make something solid. Don't you love that? I mean, I thought, oh, the man is a poem. So I have two more. This one is a new one, because I always tell my students to read something new that makes them feel a little insecure. So this is a new one, and this is for the children, and especially the children from Parkland. Sirens. 1. In every story, the songstress is a siren. The siren sings sailors to watery graves, and brave men tie themselves in knots to avoid her. Ulysses lashed to the mast, while home it is always some Penelope who weaves and unweaves, reciting and interrupting her own story. What is wrong with this picture? Hear what first seems her silence and absence, then hear her hum as she pulls warp through weft each day, each night as she undoes the tale she weaves, the heft of her loyalty thick and complex. She braids her destiny with his, becomes somehow only one bright thread in the tapestry, somehow a grace note in his opus. But listen, you can hear her if you listen. 2. So listen. Too much silence in the halls of children. Too many princesses manacled, beaten, locked in towers. Too many girls and boys locked in closets until they hear the sirens wail and a SWAT team leads them out into sunlit streets. 3. Meanwhile, in the streets. Beyond the white-pillared castle built for men who promised never to be kings, walls now guarded to keep subjects out, a young woman steps up to a microphone, and her song to the throng is a list of lost children, and after words, she shuts her mouth, opens her face, and her eyes hold us. Hundreds of thousands held wrapped, rooted. 4 minutes tick by. The only sounds the whisper of tears down cheeks and feet shuffling in the streets. We lean forward, toward her. A few chants of Emma, Emma, which drift to sighs as she stands still, her willful silence, loud as wild surf, just before whipped waves hurl sailors into churling sea. I loved her. Anyway. So I'm going to end with a somewhat where this book ends. So this one ends with more optimism than I'm probably writing now. So maybe I don't arc into the next book. I'm not sure. But this is maybe a defiant note of optimism, and also for children, for the children who have inspired me to keep going, which is my 4 little grandchildren. So they do. They make it worth fighting for, right? This is Miracle. And there's a couple of lines of a quote at the end, and the quotation is from Albert Einstein, who I think is the philosopher for our time. This is Miracle for Wesley. You make of your mouth a mirror of mine, as if at 3 months your own creation story sits on the tip of the tongue in that toothless cave we call your mouth. You fill your eyes with bare branches of magnolia, your ear with the drip of snow melt. Maybe you think you hear milk flow, sun finally chasing winter from the city stoop. Take time to look, Georgia O'Keeffe is said to have said. I once had a teacher who told me, don't ever write about your grandmother. Everyone has a grandmother. Nights when I was not much older than you are now, I watched mine brush the snow river of her hair, 100 strokes root to ends each night as her glacial blue eyes stared off somewhere. Maybe she looked back into azure-shadowed woods. Maybe her ear cradled the hollow beat of hooves, her nose the odor of Cossacks, their approaching horses. That fool teacher wanted me to write only Cossack poems. When my ear was tuned by the swish of an old woman's brush, roots to end, 100 strokes, my bubby transformed, become Rapunzel. This was my miracle each evening. In the morning, she was all tight bun and business. Now cirrus wisps striate a milk blue sky, and for the first time since your birth, the scent of earth screams spring, even as oil black ice clings to sidewalks. One day, I'll tell you about the burning bush, how Moses had to stop and look to see and hear the miracle. Today, I point out the first crocus, and your mouth shapes the O of crocus. I tell you how the hibiscus bush hauled in from the patio late in the fall, and which just last week I could have sworn I'd killed, was only sleeping. Now it presses watery green leaves from dried stalks. Wesley, look, it will flower again. Listen. There are 2 ways to live, as if nothing is a miracle, as if everything is. Let others live in dark forests, hoofbeats of Cossacks, their memories baseline. Let them wake each day and call that living. Thank you.